after I left cop work, I started Tactical Systems Network. We do consulting, security consulting, vulnerability assessments, and actual personal security. The thing that I really learned how to do, especially working amongst the bad guys, is look at something and think like a bad guy. So I just think backwards.
Welcome back to The Real Grind, guys, the place where we have amazing story, amazing guests, and we try the best cup of
coffee.
Ethan, did you get your coffee today?
I sure did. I got my coffee fixed this morning. You can tell I'm even starting maybe a little too much caffeine.
It's funny, man. Here in the studio, we got to get our coffee fixed, and we just take turns. We teaching each other, and because if that's what happens, if somebody's very good at what they do, everybody asks the same person to do the coffee for everybody, and then we end up spending probably 30 to 40 minutes just creating. Imagine how many lattes there are a day. We're not a coffee shop, but what we're teaching them here is how to make their own coffee. You've seen some amazing latte arts. Have you seen it?
Absolutely. Here we call it abstract here in the office.
Exactly. You use your imagination. But today I'm super excited about the guest today. He's here. And we're going to get the show started. Let's go.
Waking up to success. Now we're getting it started. This is the real grind. Everything you've been wanting. Building an empire, no question. Talking about real estate, investing, making the millions. No stopping while we sip on gourmet coffee. The real grind. This is the real grind. Let's go.
He's a CEO, musician, entrepreneur, and philanthropics. He's an author of Life in a Fishbowl. He's here today with us. We're walking on the stage. Tegan Broadwater, let's go, my man. My man, welcome in, brother. Hello.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Man, thank you so much for coming here. Let me put this chair up a little bit so we can be comfortable here. Tegan, thanks so much for joining the show, man.
Yes, sir.
You just got here today. There's so many questions that I wanted to ask and so many things, especially knowing that you're a fellow musician. Let's just start with that, man. What do you play?
I play a lot of things, but I started out at drums. In fourth grade, I ran across a kid who had a drum set. His brother had a drum set, and we plinked around on that. And so that's where the dream started, a Rockstar trajectory. That's where my life was supposed to go.
What was your idol at the time? For drummer?
For fourth grade, you got to give me a little slack here. When fourth grade, I was supposed to be the next Kiss drummer because this was in the 70s, man. So, but I have a breadth of taste. I went to school for music to study jazz, so I know everything from jazz to rock to funk and soul and anything that grooves, I'm in.
Hey, let's go, man. I'm a former saxophone myself.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Now we got to talk.
I'm a retired saxophone, man. I had an awesome career, and, I just decided to get a real job, and I had to put it on the side.
No insurance plans in the freelance musician?
Yeah, I sure miss it, dude. I sure miss it, and sometimes I just want to get a gig just to get out of my system,
You should.
And we got a jam. Do you play other instruments too?
Yeah, I do. Just almost out of necessity. Of course, when you study music in school, you sight sing and play piano to a functional level. And then when I started getting back into music, I found that even adults don't change in the music industry. And we were doing some commercial music stuff for, music bed placements, commercials and stuff like that. And inevitably, I'd still find myself waiting for 2 hours for the singer to show up. I was like, dude, I can't do this. My time is even more valuable now that I'm an adult, and I can't handle it. So, I picked up a guitar and started teaching myself. You have the music background, so you kind of know I can hear what I'm trying to play. I just can't play what I can hear. So It's just a matter of putting those things together. And I've always been a songwriter, so I enjoy writing and performing the tunes and all that stuff. So I wouldn't call myself an expert at any one instrument. I find myself, with as many diverse interests and even the time that I have on music, I find myself practicing every other instrument but drums.
Yeah.
Causing the drums to, of course, suffer. And it's always the last part that I write. When you're writing a tune, they're like, oh, you come up with a groove. And then I'm like, no, actually, it's kind of the last thing because it's the easiest thing for me to hear. And it's not really something that I focus on early.
But what's interesting about music too is because it does get old, right? Older you get, I guess more experience you get. You start listening to different musics and stuff, Yep. So I want to talk about, your beginnings. And I know you were a retired cop. Was that also a passion when you were growing up? How did you?
Hell no, not at all. No.
How did that came about? That's interesting.
Well, I think the music industry, as it began to change, I became a little burned out. We spent a lot of time on the road. We got signed at South by Southwest in the early 90s, back when it was still a budding program, and couldn't get along with our singer enough to keep it together long enough to see that thing through to fruition. Finding yourself touring and trying to fill up clubs in the region. You're in Arkansas, you're in Oklahoma, you're in Arizona, you're in Texas, or whatever. You're trying to fill these rooms for these cokehead club owners at the time. It was a very frustrating experience. It was fun, and then as I got older, it became more frustrating. It was kind of a wheel spin, and I thought, this is not the musical dream that I once had.
Wants to become a job, right?
Well, yeah, it became a little tedious, and it wasn't really a financial thing. I've always planned on being a starving artist. I didn't care what I made. That's what I wanted to do. And I kind of still look at that. I'm fortunate to have some money behind me now, but it's only happenstance that I picked something to make me money, because I never cared if I made money. I wanted to survive being a musician. And I had, at the time, I had 70, 80 private students that kept me alive too. So touring wasn't, touring was kind of a wash. Mm-hmm. But then I had a child in 1995, and that changed my perspective on everything. It just made me rethink everything in my life. And like I said, since fourth grade, the only thing I was supposed to do is play for KISS on a big stage somewhere, or play for whoever. And that just was my trajectory. And having a kid just takes your mind and changes every priority you've ever had.
Yeah, perspective.
So, that was part of it. And then I had a bunch of people that used to come out and listen to one of my bands were a bunch of cops. And so when I started feeling that burnout and reevaluating what I wanted to do, I had conversations with them, and they were like, "Man, you should come be a cop or whatever." I was like, "The craziest
man,
thing.
You're a great musician. You should be a cop."
Yeah, and it's almost the greatest advantage I had was that I had literally thought of nothing else until that point in my life. So when I said, "What else could I do?" I didn't have any box to work within. I just could think of anything in the world, because I'd never considered anything else. And when they brought up cop work, I'd spent many years playing with multicultural bands where I was the only white guy, and I'm learning about these other cultures, and it was a fantastic experience. And it just clicked, man. I thought, man, I would be the greatest undercover ever, because I have friends that are, dope heads, musicians, artists, prep guys, business people, whatever. I just feel like I can assimilate into different environments in a genuine way. And so that's what I decided to do. So when I joined the PD, I was the guy that probably had no business doing. I cut 8 inches of hair off, and so my license would look better. I went up and got in on the first try.
What was it, Fort Worth?
Yeah, Fort Worth, yeah.
To Fort Worth. And how old are you when you started the career at
27 or 8. So the end of my 28 years old, something like that.
That's very cool, man. I mean, definitely from a stability standpoint, right? For musician and like a career, because being a law enforcement is a career path, right? It's not just a gig or a job. Like you had to you go to academy first, and then you start growing.
Yeah, you got 6-7 months in an academy that's 40-hour weeks, but it was great for me because I was the guy that had no bad habits. And everything they taught me, I learned, and I was, one of the top shots, one of the top drivers, one of the whatever, just because I had no bad habits, came out of the music world, for heaven's sake. So I adored it, actually, getting out into it. It was a very new experience, but I felt like I could really impact positively the neighborhoods that I served. I felt like I had things in common with even the communities of color, because I'd had so much other experience, even though I'm a white, stiff nerd. I had great experience with people in that culture before, and so I had a respect for them, and I think they sensed that about me. So, I tried to really just focus on the fact that we're making a positive difference. And back in that day, I'll be honest, it's probably not politically correct, but everyone used to say, "I want to be a cop, go chase bad guys and put them in jail." I mean, hell, that's fun too. So I know that's not supposed to be the reason you do it, but the key is they're bad guys. You're looking for bad guys. You're not looking for any guy to put them in jail. So yes, the first time, my first day on the job with my training officer, a dude stands up and says,
"You already got action.
I'm not going to jail." And so I'm like telling my training officer, "Will you please hold my glasses? They're prescription, I'm fixing to get into a ruckus, but for me, I'm like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
I never once took it personal. It was just a fun experience. Just, get in fist cuffs, get the guy under control, put on handcuffs. I'm like, man, this is going to be awesome.
Yeah.
Super fun.
Yeah, I bet. You talk about routine, right? You definitely don't have one. Every day is a new adventure and stuff like, dude, I love to. So I watched the cop show that you're in, and talk about that. How did that came about? Because that could be as a musician, but transferring your whatever the dream playing in Kids, but being on TV on a show, national TV, man. How would that?
Well, I actually backed into that because there were several guys on my shift at the time. Man, cops in Fort Worth they were just cranking episodes out.
Really?
And I worked.
What was it? Because a lot of action was happening in Fort Worth, or just
tons of action. We were on, there on the north and east sides. There was a lot of action.
Yeah.
Yes, but I also, they had to get permission from these departments to film out there. And I think they were at the time. The city felt like it was good promotion for them.
Of course.
And that's the only thing I can think, because everything needs permission before you go to TV, right?
Right. And but the population, I guess, the community sees a lot of action, and that kind of gives a state for them, like, oh, we're working, we're doing stuff
too. And it could be, in this day and age, a negative stigma as well. I mean, a lot has changed since
everything now
we're talking
is
about
negative,
all through the
man.
90s and Well, so I would just, guys that were on my shift were happy to go do it, and they rode out with them all the time. And when those guys weren't there, Sergeant would pick out guys that are go-getters and workers and say, Broadwater, you and Blades, you're going to go roll with crew today. I'm like, okay. So, it was cool and I enjoyed it, but it was really weird because I just like doing cop work.
Yeah.
And it is a reality show. So, we made a number of arrests that never made TV because they wouldn't sign a release.
Yeah.
And then some of the ones that they ended up cutting up, we literally, one of the episodes that I was on, we were literally laying in the weeds, parked on the block behind the house that we were watching, and like crawled up into the weeds and with binoculars and watched them make a dope deal through the door.
Oh my God.
And then when they leave, we jump in the police car and go chase them and pull them over. And then the episode kind of picks up there. I'm like, well, that's not even the fun part. The fun part is getting your weenie dirty, being a little creative here.
Definitely getting in the weeds, man.
So I was kind of assigned to it, really. It ended up coming back to haunt me quite a bit when we get down the road. I don't even know if we end up talking about the undercover work, but obviously I ended up spending the vast majority of my career working undercover and then having 2 episodes of Cops out there with me standing out in a uniform, when at the time you got to realize you had NBC, ABC, CBS, and Fox. Those are your channels. There weren't 2,600. There were 4.
This was like early 2000s?
Yeah, 99 and 2000 is when they shot those episodes. 99, I think they shot them, and they came out in 2000.
And
so
at the time, like, all people would do is watch TV or watch those shows.
Especially in jail.
Really?
Oh. Yes. I mean, that was the hip show in jails and prisons because, you got one TV show. Like Cops is a popular program for that.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. So, once, I spent a few years in patrol and then went and started working undercover. And then once I got really good at that, proved myself to where narcotics was willing to accept a white stiff, because they kind of want somebody that fit a profile for some of the neighborhoods where the problems were.
Right.
But I'd gotten so good at it, just the gift of gab and finding ways to get in and out of those things, that I ended up starting a big operation in a particular neighborhood that was just held hostage by gangs. And I'd worked that thing for just as the sole deep undercover, full-time undercover work for 7-8 months at the time when this incident happened, because that whole thing was 18 months long.
Yeah.
It was a giant undertaking. But at about that juncture, run into this cat where by this time I'd made myself famous on the street. I was T. I had lots of money. We were buying kilos, we were moving stuff. And so small timers were coming up to me wanting to do deals. And I would always have to verify if they're gang members because I used drugs to get into the gangs.
Yeah.
Because obviously I don't look like a Crip, and I was in with the Crips. So I had to find something besides jumping in and trying to be a gang member because obviously I don't look the part.
Yeah.
Then nor now, right? So
I don't see any tattoos on your face,
yeah,
man.
yeah. So my whole thing was making sure that if this guy's a Crip, I know he's part of this network, then yes, I'll even do some small time deals just to keep this thing going and learn a little bit about their Crip organization. We get into this cat's house. He's new, and I'm walking out. I got one of my other guys with me, an informant with me. And we walk into the house, shut the burglar bar door behind us. We got a shotgun little house. It's just a little coffee table like this with one couch. The opposite side's a big screen TV. There's nothing else in the whole house except the dope and the gun on the table. And my informant and the bad guy sit at the couch and start pulling baggies of dope out and just having a conversation. When I hear a familiar voice on the big screen behind me. And
shut up.
yeah. So there was every part of my body froze at that moment. When people ask, when you were the most scared? I mean, I've had guns shoved in my face. We've been, searched and doing all these different things. All that stuff you can prepare for. This freaked me the hell out. So yes, it was me on an episode, standing in front of the TV where I was standing there like a big white star, donning a cop uniform. And I had to filibuster. It's the one thing in the book that I couldn't write quotes because I felt like I panicked, although it ended up being something I survived, obviously. But I talked and kept thinking, man, how long is this freaking episode? I could have sworn this was only a few minutes long.
Did he notice or no?
No, neither one of them did. Even the informant that knows me real well had no idea. I'm panicking. I hear the commercial. I'm like, dude, we got to go. Let's get this, whatever. I didn't know if they'd recognized or if there was some kind of plot or if I'm going to make it out the door or what. And just panicked myself back to the car. And the informant's like looking at me like, what's the matter with you, T? What's the matter? I said, you don't even know? You don't know what
Dude,
he had no idea.
Chills. I know.
He had no idea. So the problem was I worked another 10 months undercover.
Yeah.
Now that's in my mind. It's like, well, how often is that going to replay? I got, high school, friends that call me from across the country. Like, oh, I just saw you on TV. I mean, that's the last thing I needed. So it caused a little bit of a panic and a little bit of a concern on my part as to whether or not I was going to be compromised.
Right.
But there's something about a dude in a uniform. You see him once in a uniform and then you see him in plain clothes and sometimes you don't even recognize him again.
Yeah.
And I kind of just had to lean on that because I looked nothing like that anymore. And I just had to bet that I was going to be okay because I was too deep to quit at that point.
And it's true. To that, just think when people see it on a stage or in TV or whatever, it's kind of a different when you see it in the real life. I remember when I was the peak of my saxophone career and I got down from stage after the show and other bands would come out and I walk around and people wouldn't even recognize it was me. It was just there literally 30 minutes ago. They have no idea.
Yeah.
Probably, take a jacket
Different
off or
perception,
something.
right.
Yeah, totally different.
Uh-huh.
And some people see people on TVs and put them on a pedestal. Oh, this is not real people. You know what I'm saying? But at the end of the day, it is. Man, that's an amazing story.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I would freak out. And Teak, where's the lifespan of Undercover Cop? Like people, how long did they stay? Is that for a season, a period of time until you get the guys that you're looking
That's
for?
a good question because undercover work doesn't work like it used to in the 70s and the 60s where there were deep cover operations. Kind of what I did was really an anomaly because I went full-time undercover because I had one boss above me that kind of protected me from getting found out while I spent the entire police budget on samples of stuff, knowing that I was a hard worker and that I had a large conspiracy in the works. Typically, I mean, like I said, that you read about stuff. You have the Donnie Brascos and you've got guys like that whom I also admired and read about and tried to learn from and emulate. But essentially, I had like a place that was purported to be my house, and I'm driving in, hanging out with these guys, and just you go in and bring a 4-pack of Magnums and sip some 40s and beat their ass at Madden. That's as much street cred as you can get bringing in dope. So really? I would spend time doing that and getting to know them, which again was part of the human story of this thing. It's not a superhero story about some Batman figure that comes in and conquers the bad guys and brings them in. It's really about getting to know them as people and realizing, man, this dude's a gangbanger. Right? Yeah, this is a gangbanger, but he's a dude that's asking me about chicks and cowboys and video games and what you drinking and all of that. If you separate the sociopath, you've got like a real good dude here, So it's the sociopath part you have to separate. But it was a real emotional roller coaster for me to do that.
Yeah, but because you have to kind of get together. And I'm a true believer that you kind of feed the energy of who you are with or hanging out with, right? And ultimately, it kind of, you have to have a very strong core values and, but it's such a sacrifice also, man, to put yourself in this. So I call heroes 100%. It is, it's not for the fact of, like I said, right, putting guys in jail, whatever, but just to do this in the name of, justice or, saving the future problems that could have. You know,
it was really born of a particular neighborhood where there were people that, you know, it's a socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhood.
Right.
So you have older people that are there that are taking care of their kids and their kids' kids, and aunties living down the street taking care of another 8 kids, and the rest of them are running amok and shooting each other and bringing in prostitutes and dopes and doing all this stuff. And these are just people trying to survive.
Right.
So really it's about, even the worst neighborhoods have really good people in there that just can't live normally.
Right.
And they can't, you know, you're like, hey man, you need to move from here. This is a terrible place. Well, they don't have the money to just up and move. Where are they going to move to? You know, another socioeconomically disadvantaged neighborhood, putting themselves in the same situation.
And sometimes you move, end up being higher rent, or the cost of moving is expensive.
Yeah. So they're prisoners. Yeah. You know, so you've got to eradicate the gangs from that and pull them out of there. But it's only one little piece of the solution, which, you know, ultimately I learned is, look, it's like sex trafficking. You know, you can go in and bang down the door and pull them out, but if that's the only thing you do, you know that within a month they're going to be back out there.
100%.
And that's the same way that the gang is. It's all cyclical. And then, you know, you put those guys in jail, and then we realized we have, so at the end of an 18-month undercover operation, we rounded up 51 gangbangers and had 104 kids now that are fatherless. And we know what happens to fatherless kids in poor neighborhoods. So I'm like, well, how do we fix that? You know, so that's where that's the only thing that inspired me to even write a book. The book's not about trying to up my status. It's about bringing awareness to the fact that, man, the only way that we can really fix this cycle is, yes, you got to put these dudes away, but now we need to mentor the kids that are left and show them that there are better choices to make and better opportunities. Teach them how to do everything from write checks to get better grades, to learn maybe about music or maybe about different ways that you can make living, whatever.
Mind occupied and with purposes, right?
Yeah. Purpose-driven things. And just, you know, these kids feel like there's a ceiling here.
Right.
Where you're like, I could work at McDonald's, my local McDonald's forever, or I could make $1,000 a week working for this cat.
Right.
You know, and they think those are the only two choices because that's the only thing they see. So a lot of it takes mentorship, and so we donate all the profits from the book to programs that mentor children of incarcerated parents for that reason, so that we feel like that wasn't done for nothing. You know, I enjoyed making the impact, but it blew up into something so big,
right. Yes, that
we really thought, man, I would hate to try to figure out in 18 years who's going to go undercover and arrest all these kids. Mm-hmm. So, you know, that defeats the whole purpose.
100%. And Tegan, I want to keep talking about the book and your mission and where you got it going on. But before, I have a question, and then following the question, we have to have some coffee, man.
I love it.
But let me ask you a question. Is there a stereotype that cops like donuts and coffee?
There is a stereotype, and always has been. And, you know, I tell you, I think what that's born of is they used to have little shops and convenience stores that served coffee and donuts and Danish, whatever. You take a 7-Eleven or whatever, and they would welcome cops to come in and eat free because they want a cop's
security.
Presence.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a deterrent because you have a car there. Of course, he's not paying attention because he's reading a magazine and drinking a coffee and eating a donut.
Right.
But I think that's where it was born of. And yes, there's still plenty of cops who take the test and get in and physically fit, go through the academy, and then get out and then never work out again. But
the coffee part,
the coffee part's always important. You got to be alert, man.
Guess what time it is, man? It's coffee time. Let's go.
Bring it. I thought for a minute that said funk, and I was like, man, see, I love it. Funk Monday, but no.
It is Funk Monday. It's whatever you want it to be.
Tegan, how are you, my friend?
Good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. So, Neander, a little backstory here. As we drink good coffee,
all right.
Tegan and I, we go way back, and we used to exchange whiskey bottles. So me working as a waiter, he'll come in as a client, and I'll be like, hey, I got you. I was like,
it's a no-no, but it's a yes.
Undercover transaction there.
Yeah. So Tegan, he appreciates good drinks. So I think he'll like this.
Are you gonna represent today?
I think so.
All right.
I think so. Yeah. This is Tegan. Let me get you this in here. We're gonna drink it together.
This looks like it needs to be drank by somebody sophisticated, like more sophisticated than me. Do I do the pinky thing here and
You
all
do the
that?
pinky,
too?
you automatic sophisticated, man.
That's all I need to do.
That's
Okay.
all I
Exactly. So give it a good smell, and slurping it like a wine. Like
Okay.
you let it sit in your mouth for a little bit.
Very fruity. That's a really good coffee.
Am I ignorant to think there's kind of a vanilla note? Maybe.
No?
Yeah.
It's a smooth smell too.
Yeah.
That's super
So-
smooth. I love that.
One thing for you to notice in there, I actually love hearing that conversation that you guys are having here, but this is the longest we've gone before coffee time.
Yeah.
So I prepared the coffee. I was like, I just hope it doesn't get too cold.
Oh.
But that's the beauty of this coffee. Can you tell it's not hot?
Right.
It's like lukewarm,
Yeah.
but you still feel the good flavor.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing about specialty coffee. The colder it gets, the more it's gonna expose the qualities.
Okay. I was going to ask that same thing because it seems like something particularly hot, same as particularly cold. That's why you
Yeah.
put whiskey on ice is one thing. You put it on a giant block of ice and let it get really cold, you're cutting out a lot of the flavor. Is that the
100%.
same way
100%,
coffee works?
Yeah. So bad coffee, or it's gonna be super hot, piping hot that you can't taste it, and it's
Right.
gonna be over roasted, right?
Yep.
And the over roasting of the coffee is just like a burnt meat. This is of a medium rare. It's more juicy. There's more flavors. You know what I
Okay.
mean? So this coffee is great, man. It's almost like what I say this a lot is like, you know, the strawberry, it's really sweet, but you know the ones that's a little green on top?
Right.
Try again. Think of that and sip again.
Okay.
Pinky up.
Like a grape that is not yet ripe, right?
Yeah.
That's and that's how coffee should take. You know, people we had today, somebody came in the office and he tries me, man, it's like a tea. It's supposed to be like that. That way
yeah.
you can really like a flower that it releases on the tea, right? It's the same thing with coffee. You're supposed to release all that the notes from the coffee.
Absolutely.
And even for a novice, I have like no inclination to, give me just a little cream and a Splenda. I mean, no inclination. It's super the way it is.
Yeah, and there's no sugar in there. It's just how coffee is supposed to be. Like a lot
Yeah.
of people don't treat coffee as a fruit, and it's a fruit that is sweeter than a grape. So, transfer to the cup whenever it's well roasted.
Really interesting.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning.
Hey, let's go. And then,
We need to bring him to Brazil. He never
Yeah.
been to Brazil. Take him
oh,
to
you
the
never
farm.
been?
Yeah, the next cast is there.
Yeah.
Let's
Okay,
go.
I'll meet you.
But Tegan, this coffee is part of our Fuck Monday initiative in here. Is our new coffee. So whenever
Love it.
people see good coffee in our podcast, they always ask, like, where do you get this coffee from? So what we're doing here is helping small local farms, giving them a shelf, like visibility, so we can actually pretty much showcase what they have to offer so people can get it from us, limited quantity. And then whenever we're out, they go to their website and then they support that.
Beautiful. Love it.
And empower the entrepreneurs. There's a very common. I have actually a couple cousins that they are farmers, and this particular one that he quit his job. Him and his wife went to the country and just to make their own coffee. So he started the entrepreneur as a farmer. So that's why I said Monday on a corporate world is probably the worst day, and the days
Yeah.
you drink coffee the most. So that's what the name came from. But truly is to motivate and inspire entrepreneurs and local farmers.
I love that.
stuff
And
like that.
farmers of all really need as much help as they can get.
100%.
Just thinking about it, local farmers are basically the musicians when they start, right? They just try to get by until they get a big record deal, and that's the same thing with
Exactly, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
very
tough,
good,
it's
'cause
a
the
tough way to go, but
quality's
it's
there.
so necessary and so important. too.
coffee. Absolutely.
Right.
Tegan, before I go, got you a little something here for you to
Oh man.
take home with you, and you can also drink some coffee and represent next time as well.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it. They always say I look good in orangish. So that's perfect. Love the coffee cup.
You got
Thank
it,
you, my
brother.
brother.
You got it.
Hey, you can't leave here then because I got to reciprocate.
Oh,
Awesome,
I like that.
man.
So I got a book for each of you.
Nice.
Man, thank
And
you
again,
so
just
much. That's
supporting the
awesome.
cause, same thing. It's always positive impact stuff, and I appreciate what you guys do.
Tegan,
too,
how
so.
can people get hands on this, guys?
Amazon is the best way to do it, and within probably the next month, I'll have the audiobook up on my website.
I was just gonna ask.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's coming. It's done. I'm just setting it up now, so I can give you my website later. It's TeganBroadwater.com.
Awesome.
Nice.
That's not up there, but that's just find it on Amazon. Life in the Fishbowl, and again, know that all the profits go to charities that mentor children of incarcerated parents.
That's amazing,
Awesome,
man.
man.
And thanks for this cause. And we're gonna put a link down in the description below, guys, so you can get a hands of this guide. I can't wait to read it. I know Delia's gonna love to do it too.
Cool.
Absolutely.
And this next segment, we're gonna talk about how can we apply some principles on the real estate portion of it.
Yep.
And that's awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Tegan,
Thank you, my friend.
as always, man.
It's good seeing you, man.
Welcome to the corporate world, a place you go to every day against your will, with endless meetings. And worst of all, shitty coffee. Introducing F*** Monday, a specialty coffee for those who want to kickstart the week with a better taste. A reminder to do your own thing or go after what's brewing in your head. Unless you're thinking of reading tarot cards for dogs or other dumb ideas like that. For everyone else, F*** Monday, your daily dose of attitude.
Tig, man, would you like the coffee? Good stuff.
Loved it. I'm very impressed. And again, I'm a novice, so I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to discern anything.
Yeah.
But it was quite good. I'm impressed.
Well, we're gonna follow up with you in about 30 days.
Okay.
And then you
That's fine. That's fine.
and then
Make an addict out of me and then realize,
yeah,
man, I'm supporting these
exactly.
fools a lot.
Many folks came here, didn't even drink coffee. We have people that never ever tried coffee in the show and they're drinking now. So
Yeah.
converted, man.
Cool.
But Tig, let's share a little bit some stories, or and then we go through some practices. We have a lot of people, and especially on the multifamily side,
Yep.
that watch our show, that follow us, and we love to get a little bit, some stories about. I'm sure you have a couple for
plenty. Sure.
multifamilies and
Yeah.
scary stories, and then for segment of that, if you can. There's also the safety of our staff and how can we screen better those people who come into the property and build a very strong community, because this is all about. Like, we want to really build strong communities on the apartments that we want.
Yeah, sure. Well, after I left cop work, I started Tactical Systems Network. We do consulting, security consulting, vulnerability assessments, and actual personal security and investigations, and learned a whole lot from the police work. And I learned a whole lot from musicians taken into police work, and both of those taken forward into the security industry.
Right.
And as an expert witness on a number of occasions, I've been leveraged for testimony on the Timberwalk case, which does have everything to do with an apartment complex where somebody had complained about one of their sliding door was kind of ajar and it wouldn't quite lock right.
Right.
And they took their time getting around to it, and this lady ended up getting raped because they broke in through that door, and she ended up suing the pants off these people. And a lot of that case applies to a lot of different instances, whereby we had a case once where you have a restaurant in a strip center. So there are a number of businesses.
Yeah.
So you have kind of a communal parking area, but a particular patron came into this particular business and ate, walked out about 16 steps and got jumped and beaten to the point where he was incapacitated and on a respirator and eventually died. And they sued the restaurant specifically because they had not done enough things in advance to ensure safety because of the part of town they were in, because of the lack of light. They had a number of cameras that were non-functional.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they hire people like me to go assess whether or not I think it's safe just outside the scope of what happened there. And so the thing that I really learned how to do, especially working amongst the bad guys, is look at something and think like a bad guy. So
Right.
I just think backwards, and I would encourage anybody to do it. So if you just walk some of your properties and think, all right, if I was going to burglarize an apartment, how would I do it? And which one would I do? Because everything that a criminal evaluates is based on cost versus gain. If they
Right.
think they can accomplish it, they'll do it. They think there's a decent chance. If you put enough things in place to keep them from thinking that they can get away with it, then they'll go next door and do it.
Right.
And that's kind of what you're trying to do, is set up deterrences and and you're protecting yourself in a grand way. I mean,
and sometimes they see the opportunity too. Like they just passed by, they weren't thinking about it, but they saw an opportunity to do something, and they will do.
Right. And there's still things that you can do to mitigate that too. Because, you know, a lot of these places that have high crime are, for one, this seems really elementary, but a lot of the best ideas are, a lot of these places are very poorly lit. So if I'm going to commit a crime, I certainly don't want to be seen when I do such a thing. So if I see, you know, somebody that's carrying a nice purse and I want to go snag their purse, but everything's lit and in the open, and I see cameras that are out there, then I'm going to have to find another opportunity.
Yeah, makes difficult.
Yeah, and it's defensible too for you, because you've said it in such a way that, look, it's impractical for a criminal to accomplish this.
Right.
So that when that anomaly happens and they do it anyway, you at least have some defense because you've gone out of your way to present a safe environment. And I know a lot of times, this is something I don't mean to interview you, but you know, it's a lot of times it's cost prohibitive. If you have a low income apartment complex and you're expected to have high quality locks and fencing and proper lighting, ingress, egress is just one in, one out, so where everybody can monitor. That's easier said than done when you are on a budget.
Right. And when we first buy the property and we get in a contract, even before getting a contract, I tend to drive the property at nighttime. And I look at the surroundings and the comps, and I kind of have an eye for. Obviously, there's a lot of scare away a lot of people. We do own a property, without disclosing the name, but we do have a property that's in an area that is, you know, it's a C, high crime apartment. It's a C class apartment at all Buell Spade. So there's a very fine line who we allowed in, but sometimes we allowed a person that we vet that supposed to be, you know, under the criteria to live in that property, but they invite 3 others that are not at least. And sometimes it's hard to get, but
evictions take time. You got to buy 60, 90 days at that point.
Exactly, yeah. But to your point about the budgeting, and if it's something in the city, sometimes they get to you, like, you know, how much lighting do you have? Do you have security or gated, whatever? And I tell you what, they have breezeways. There's and all those breezeways, we have to replace doors and locks almost every month. Yeah. You know, and no matter how many cameras we put in there, but we have to keep doing it, man. And that's something that we also had to learn by doing it. But you're right, sometimes we don't have the budget.
Right. Yeah, and cameras are simply a deterrent, so you can see who did it after they did it too.
Yeah, but then it's usually a guy in a hoodie, and exactly. But you catch the guy in a hoodie, and then you have, you know, over 200 families living in there. How are you going to find out, right? Yeah. Obviously, the managers start getting to know the community more, but it's a constant challenge, man.
Right. I can totally see that, and it's the main thing for property ownership, I think, is to be ahead of that curve in terms of finding creative ways in those breezeways. You have shrubbery and different things too. That needs to be maintained on a regular basis because you have overgrowth. That's places to hide, places to stash. Again, it makes it more difficult for other people to see what you're doing. Right. So you want clear paths of sight and different things like that. And it's actually becoming cheaper these days to buy lighting and camera systems and stuff like that.
Yes, 100%. I'm agree with you. And you know, you can get, because you're definitely going to have guys that work in the property full-time maintenance guys, is something that they could easily install. Yeah. Replace those new LED lights that is so much brighter than it used to be, those incandescent lights. It pull a lot more light. Yeah. But what I tell you, something I learned as well, so they're broken window theory, right? That they see a broken window, now they break another thing and another thing. And right. So you have to constantly keep maintaining.
No respect for it if there's nothing to maintain.
Trash pickup, you know, that's a big deal. So I'd just be very transparent with you. And if I knew all those things prior to us buying, I would probably never bought that property. But I tell you what, it's kind of, in a way, is rewarding when I do a yearly inspection. Yeah. And I walk inside those units and I see real families in there, good people.
Right. Yeah, you want to be able to accommodate
right now,
people.
Man, because like it's.
Yeah, I mean, because not everybody can just. I mean, you don't want. There's going to be different levels of ownership. I mean, you have to have people that are in poorer areas have somewhere safe to live. I mean, if there's anybody that'll back you on that, it's me. I mean, you've got to have some place that they feel safe. Another tip that's interesting that you can do is create an email or a call-in system or both that is somewhat anonymous to allow people to report things that seem suspicious. They don't have to be a crime. It doesn't have to be a violation of this or whatever, and just allow them to call in. And
police each other.
Kind of. And then you designate a team of people. It may not even be someone on site, may be an on-site manager, and then maybe somebody from your office who reviews these on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you can get out in front of that stuff. When you find somebody out casing the place and you're like, man, this guy doesn't belong. I've never seen him here before. Your tenants are going to know that way more than you are. Or if 100%. I'm there assessing the place, I don't know who belongs and doesn't belong.
Especially like in a breezeway, like we talked about, there's 4 apartments. Actually, there's more actually. About 6 apartments. Mm-hmm. They know who comes in and out every day because you sometimes you know who your next door neighbor is, right? Most cases.
Yeah. And again, those good people will report something suspicious.
Yeah.
It's not even narking on anybody because, again, it doesn't have to be a crime. It's not like somebody's going to get arrested. But it's important for you to know that something's happening so that you can start mitigating that issue, seeing if there's something that needs to be done. Maybe you put a trip light in that breezeway instead of what you have so that when somebody walks through there, it turns on and they're not sure if it automatically turned on or if somebody just turned it on to see who they, again, making them feel like they're being seen changes their strategy.
100%, man. That's great advice. So you think we should do it through like an email or send it out of some flyers or
whatever's simpler. Yeah.
Anything. We do have a text message campaigns that we can communicate all the residents, but maybe or like, hey, if you see some suspicious activities, we're trying to get you a better community. Here's an email that you can report activities to.
Anonymously.
Yeah, anonymously.
If you want to be anonymous. I mean, some people might say, hey, call me, I can explain or whatever. So we encourage you to leave your name, but if you don't want to, fine, because our concern is making sure that things don't happen that can be avoidable. And, it's whatever, I mean, sometimes if it's a school, it's usually an email because everybody has their school emails or whatever, but it might be easier to do a text because everybody's got a phone.
Right, maybe a landing page or something that you can come in and just submit. Only the tenants know that it's kind of not public and they can just submit a form and, activities, upload something.
Right, and again, it just assure them that there's a very limited number of executive level people that review this so that things can get done. This isn't something that just gets overlooked. And on a daily basis, somebody's checking them to make sure there isn't something really remarkable happening.
Right.
Because on a day-to-day, you never know. You can't wait a week. Because, last Tuesday, they said this guy was walking around in here however many times, and they were worried something was going to happen, and that's going to come back to
That's a very good idea. No, 100%. That's a very good idea. And team, you guys watching this, take notes. Let's start implementing this. It's a very good idea. We've done in the past, we were having a lot of issues with trash. People throwing trash. We pick up the grounds every morning, but it was just like the trash was overflowing and stuff. So we put a nice flyer, send it out. Let's help our community together. Let's take care of it. That actually helped.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, because everybody was caring for it. Hey, let's,
little pride.
They want to, exactly. So I believe in that. We here at our companies, it's like we focus first on the community and then everything else after that.
Yeah.
Because it's a piece of real estate. There's a lot of people that just look at those are numbers, but there's people living in there, man.
Yeah. And one of the other simpler things that I can give you is, and it's kind of my own term in our documents we make, is an accountability contact. So when you bring up trash, if you assign somebody that works in your office to scan for trash or make patrols and make sure all the lights are working or whatever, some of those things that normally happen, you assign that to one person, whether they're there or not. They're the ones that you're going to call to make sure the lights are right. And when somebody calls and says, man, we got 3 lights out, you call that one person. Said you are accountable for these lights being off or on, or whether doors are shut after the cleaning service leaves or after, all the trash has been picked up or whatever. That way they feel like they can take ownership over something. And you're actually fixing a problem that's not costing any money.
Right.
You're just saying, I'm holding you accountable for this particular issue. And when something does go awry and you start calling them, they feel a little bit more self-conscious about making sure that it gets done. They take ownership over that particular thing.
That's very good tip too. At close to this property forward, we have another one. There's it's funny because it's only 1.6 mile away, but very different. And we had a lot of issues with trash overages as well. There was contractors parking in there, and dumping everything from their trucks and filling up our trashes. We were paying almost $1,000 a month on overages.
Yep.
So I researched this camera so we put this pole with signage. Hey, there's camera.
Perfect.
Only, and everybody that approaches the dumpster
Reads the sign.
No, it flashes a light and it alarms, and we see the footage later. It's on my phone. I show it. It's hilarious, man. But then I was like, we have to put this on all the time. So even the tenants go dumped out the trash. They're going to get buzzed. And I felt bad in a way, but then we send them a blast text message, say, hey guys, we try to get our community clean, and having those weird trucks, we send them screenshots. This weird trucks coming in, putting whatever it is on our dumpsters, so security. Everybody just understood. Everybody was a clean message, and it's great. Yeah. We never paid a dime anymore for overages.
Beautiful. Yeah, it's a great idea. Again, just make them be seen. Let them know that you're going to be watching. Right. They don't know for sure if you are or not, but they'd rather just dump it somewhere else and not get in trouble.
Yeah, exactly, man. I mean, it's illegal to dump trash in all these properties. You know what I mean?
I see it all the time. We definitely see that's a big problem.
Talk to me about this book, man. Why would you get to this book, and who is it for? And
yeah, it's again, it just describes the 18-month, nearly 2-year experience, but 18 months working deep undercover, infiltrating the Crips to eradicate them from part of the city that was really struggling to beat the crime issues, and the story about the people that were involved, even the bad guys, and socially how more alike we are than anything else. I mean, these cats are very similar to how I am. My undercover persona was practically myself, other than the fact that I wouldn't go try to move kilos of dope or get into a gang. It's otherwise I was kind of the same person, so I felt like I was like honestly relating to a lot of these guys. And once we figured out that, again, these kids are now left, once you round up all the bad guys and take them off the streets, now you have all these kids that are left behind that are now fatherless. They need mentorship, they need accountability, they need structure in their lives, and they need some kind of goal-setting process where they realize there's more to it than what they think. And so that's really the motivation. No one even knew, even after we did the roundup, no one really knew who I was. I mean, we had the FBI was having press conferences, the gang unit in Fort Worth was having press conferences, it was all fine. And then a buddy of mine and one of my bosses recommended me for an Officer of the Year thing, and then it just kind of came out. Papers hit, so it became a big story. It's throwing pitches out the Texas Rangers game. It's not what I asked for, at all. It wasn't part of the deal, because undercover work is, kind of supposed to be undercover work. So, but it ended up bringing attention to it. And then I had lots of people saying, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. Yeah. And I used to keep these little, I call them snot rags, because I made them look like snot rags, but I would memorialize little events that happened, or write down people's names if I saw a tattoo, whatever, and then wad it up and make it look like it was a snot rag and shove it in the side of my car door. And so I had lots of these things that kind of created a story along with some of the records from the thing. And so I knew I could write one. And so I decided, once we discovered the kids and that there were some entities that really did great mentoring for these kids and gave them a good shot, I decided to write it, and it teamed up with an author that mentored me in terms of story structure and stuff. And then, I think as much of an accomplishment as the undercover work was, really writing the book was a great accomplishment too, because it really took me a long time to really master the structure and the way to tell a story. I mean, you can't tell 51 people's story in a book.
Right.
So you got to figure out how to condense it, And since then, we've written movie scripts and all these different things, which condenses it even more. If you want to make a 3 or 4 hour movie, then you're going to have to make it about 4 or 5 or 6 characters, not, and there are plenty in there, probably too many in there. But again, I've learned a ton over the period of time, but that's the only purpose that the book was written. And again, we keep not a dime from it. I'm probably 10, 15K in the hole for this book, but again, it's for the right reason. So it's all good.
I totally, and I want to make sure that we help you support this cause. There's going to be a link down in our description of this podcast. People want to get it. I haven't read yet, but I will, and I do read a lot of books, man. And at least once a month I do read a book. Yeah,
that's great.
But I do a lot of audiobooks.
Okay, well, hey, if you want to wait, I'll tell you. I'll let you know. I'll let Italo and say, hey, man, the audiobook's up.
But my wife likes paper books. I'm sure she's gonna read this one, and brother, how can we find out about you, about your also the technical system security firm?
Sure.
How do we get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is to go to teganbroadwater.com, and it's TEGAN Broadwater.com. And there you will find everything on the podcast. You'll find everything on the book. You find everything on the security and investigation business, my charitable endeavors, the charities that we support and stuff like that. It's all right there. You can click and run to any of those independent websites. So that's probably the easiest way.
Yes.
Even if you want to just get to Amazon through that website, you can click right through and get a book or whatever. So
yeah,
it's pretty user friendly. And again, within, I don't know, this is going to release maybe a month down the road. So maybe by the time this releases, we'll actually have the audiobook on that as well,
right,
that you can pick up as well. Same thing with the profits. So
very nice. And, if you're watching this from a multifamily side, definitely get somebody to come in, and I advise you do the assessment, man. We want to actually talk to you after this to see if we can come out to a couple of our properties and just, we can hire you and your team to come in and come and do an assessment for us. So we can do best practice to take care of that community.
Yeah. And a lot of that stuff you can apply to a lot of your other properties, especially if you own, a number of them. We try to make it really easy. We don't use industry terminology and stuff like that. We start speaking plain language, give you good ideas that aren't using security nomenclature. So you can just take that forward and implement new strategies throughout 2 or 3 year period with that one report. Mm-hmm. But you can also learn how you can improve some of your other properties using some of the same principles in it.
100%. But this is the part that we're going to ask you some questions, man. Some tricky questions that we put up for you here. This is the Spin of the Beans with Tegan. Let's go. Logic or Pro Tools?
Logic.
Pro Tools is old school, man.
Yeah, I know. I'm old, but still Logic.
Quality or quantity?
Quality.
Rock and roll or really down rap?
Rock and roll.
Hell yeah. East Coast or West Coast?
Oh man, you're gonna get me killed. I can't. Love you, and I love you. How's that? I can't. Honestly, for personally, outside of that, West Coast.
West Coast. All right. Nick and Sam Steakhouse or Joe T's Garcia?
Oh man, Joe T's. Come on.
Man.
It's all about the vibe. It's all about the vibe.
It's all about the vibe.
It's all about the
vibe.
vibe.
Is no longer there.
That's true. There's less reason to go, but still good.
All right, bourbon or scotch?
Bourbon.
Speeding ticket or parking ticket?
If it's only going to be one in 60 days, I'll take the speeding ticket because I can do it all through the mail.
AC/DC or Linear Skyner?
AC/DC or Leonard Skinner? Okay, well, first of all, one of my best friends is in Leonard Skinner, but sorry, Spark. I'll take AC/DC.
Ah, man.
I love him, though. He knows that. He don't care.
Bodyguard or 24-hour surveillance?
Well, nah, that depends. Depends if you're moving. If you're staying somewhere, put the surveillance in.
Tama or DW drums?
DW, but all respect. It's just what I grew up with. It's all good.
What about Pearl?
Pearl was my first kit was Ludwig. I love those. Pearl was what I made my living on. And then once I could afford DW, then I got DWs.
And then next time we had the show, we got to have some drums set up with some music. We'd have a musician, invited to the show.
That would be a great idea.
Great, man.
Logistic
show like
nightmare, but still super fun.
That completes the Spin of the Bean with Tegan. Let's go. Take my man. Look at camera 3. If you would give camera 3 right there. If you give yourself advice, man, for your younger self, of somebody that, you do some inspiring stuff there. I'm sure it would inspire a lot of young fellas and stuff. But what would you?
To my younger self, I would say, Tegan, embrace the fear and failure, because not just embracing the failure, but picking up the little gems that are left. So when something goes awry, let it go awry and figure out where you could have done better. Even if it's 5% of the problem, take that 5% forward.
Let's go, brother.
All right.
Bro, thanks so much for coming here, Tig. It was amazing, man. We went, that was an awesome episode. No, but that is amazing.
I'm impressed.
It is awesome. And, I appreciate all the advice you gave and all the stories that, I'm sure a lot of folks will get a lot of value for that. Keep doing what you're doing, man. I appreciate, your life. And it was very good to get to know you a little better.
Yes, sir. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much, man.
Now
Thanks for having me.
We just got to do a jamming session.
And as always, guys, thank you so much for watching or listening to the Real Grind podcast. Different one, right? Who would expect that a cop is involved now in security and all that stuff? This is what we're all about. Bring all different kind of backgrounds in here, bringing friends in here, bringing people that actually love coffee here. We love that. This episode is sponsored by F Monday. So if you want to find out a little bit more about F Monday, go to fmonday.com or F Monday Coffee on Instagram, and you're gonna find out about the newest coffee that we have out there, everything about this coffee that is amazing. If you want to read an amazing book, Amazon, Life in the Fishbowl, Tegan Broadwater. It's gonna be right there for you. If you wanna see Tegan's podcast, go to Uncommon Souls on YouTube. That's where you're gonna find Tegan's episodes. He has amazing episodes in there. You're gonna love it. But again, YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, Apple Music. If you just do a little Google, you're gonna find us everywhere. Hope to see you out there. Give us a like. Thank you so much. This is the Real Grind. Let's go.
Waking up to success. Now we're getting it started. This is the real grind. Everything you've been wanting. Building an empire, no question. Talking about real estate, investing, making the millions. No stopping while we sip on, go and make coffee. The real grind. This is the real grind. Let's go.